Why do bad habits feel almost impossible to quit, even when you know they're hurting you? The answer lies deep inside your brain's reward system. Habits aren't just behaviors, they're neurological patterns wired into your mind through repetition and dopamine. But neuroscience shows that with the right strategy, you can interrupt and weaken those patterns surprisingly fast. In this video, we'll explore how to break a habit in just 3 days using neuroscience-backed techniques that reprogram your brain from the inside out. Today we will talk about how to break a habit in 3 days using neuroscience. So, before we start, make sure to hit the like button and subscribe to my channel. 1. Why habits feel impossible to break. Habits often feel stronger than logic because they are deeply connected to the brain's survival and reward systems. Many people believe bad habits exist because of weak discipline or laziness, but neuroscience shows the truth is far more complex. Habits are automatic neurological patterns created through repetition, emotional association, and dopamine reinforcement. Every time a behavior is repeated, the brain strengthens the neural pathway connected to it. Over time, the brain begins performing the behavior automatically to conserve energy and reduce mental effort. This is why habits can continue even when people consciously know they are harmful. Whether it is procrastination, scrolling endlessly on social media, overeating, smoking, negative thinking, or emotional dependency, the brain eventually links the behavior to temporary emotional relief or reward. 2. Day 1. Interrupt the dopamine loop. The first step in breaking a habit is understanding dopamine, the brain chemical heavily connected to motivation, reward, and repetition. Many people mistakenly think dopamine creates pleasure itself, but neuroscience shows dopamine is more connected to anticipation and craving. The brain releases dopamine when it expects a reward, which encourages repeated behavior. This means bad habits become powerful because the brain starts craving the emotional relief or stimulation connected to the habit before the action even happens. On the first day of habit change, the goal is to interrupt the automatic dopamine cycle. This requires identifying the trigger connected to the habit. Every habit usually follows a neurological pattern: trigger, craving, action, and reward. For example, stress may trigger scrolling on social media, boredom may trigger overeating, or loneliness may trigger emotional texting. 3. The brain hates sudden emotional withdrawal. One reason habits return quickly is because the brain resists emotional withdrawal. Neuroscience explains that many habits are emotionally regulating behaviors rather than purely physical actions. Habits often help people escape stress, boredom, loneliness, anxiety, insecurity, or emotional discomfort temporarily. When the habit disappears suddenly, the brain experiences emotional imbalance because its familiar coping mechanism has been removed. This is why cravings become strongest during emotional stress rather than simple physical desire. The brain begins searching desperately for the old dopamine pattern because it associates the habit with emotional relief. On the second day, many people fail because they interpret discomfort as proof they cannot change. In reality, discomfort is evidence that the brain is rewiring itself. 4. Replace the habit instead of erasing it. One of the biggest mistakes people make is trying to completely erase habits without replacing the neurological reward attached to them. The brain dislikes emotional emptiness because habits often occupy emotional and behavioral space repeatedly throughout daily life. Neuroscience suggests that replacing habits works more effectively than simply removing them. The reason is simple: the brain still seeks emotional reward, stimulation, or relief. For example, replacing stress eating with exercise, breathing techniques, or walking gives the brain an alternative source of emotional regulation. Replacing endless social media scrolling with reading, creative work, or physical movement redirects attention and dopamine more constructively. 5. Why environment controls your behavior more than willpower. Neuroscience shows that environment strongly influences behavior, often more than motivation or self-control alone. Many habits are unconsciously triggered by specific places, objects, people, emotions, or routines. For example, someone may crave snacks while watching television, feel the urge to smoke after drinking coffee, or automatically check their phone during moments of boredom. The brain creates strong associations between environments and behaviors through repeated exposure. This means breaking a habit becomes significantly harder when triggers remain constantly present. On the third day, changing environmental cues becomes critical. Removing temptations, limiting exposure to triggers, and restructuring routines helps weaken automatic neural responses. The brain relies heavily on patterns and cues to predict behavior. When the environment changes, automatic behaviors become less powerful because familiar triggers disappear. 6. The power of neuroplasticity. One of the most important discoveries in neuroscience is neuroplasticity, the brain's ability to reorganize and create new neural pathways throughout life. Many people believe their habits are permanent parts of their personality, but neuroscience shows the brain constantly adapts based on repeated experience. Every thought, behavior, emotion, and routine strengthens certain neural connections while weakening others. When people stop reinforcing old habits and repeatedly practice healthier behaviors, the brain gradually rewires itself. This process does not happen instantly, but the first 3 days are psychologically important because they interrupt automatic repetition patterns. During this early period, the brain begins weakening the old pathway while becoming more open to forming new routines. Neuroplasticity explains why consistent small changes eventually create major transformation. 7. Emotional awareness is the real secret. Many people try to break habits without understanding the emotional need hidden underneath the behavior itself. Neuroscience and psychology both show that habits are often emotional coping mechanisms disguised as behaviors. A person rarely scrolls endlessly, overeats, procrastinates, or seeks constant distraction for no reason. Usually, the habit temporarily reduces emotional discomfort such as stress, loneliness, fear, boredom, sadness, or anxiety. This means true habit change requires emotional awareness, not just behavioral control. People who ignore emotional triggers often relapse because the underlying emotional pain remains unresolved. The brain continues searching for relief until healthier emotional coping systems are developed. Understanding emotional patterns weakens automatic behavior because awareness activates higher reasoning systems in the brain. 8. Breaking a habit is really rewiring the brain. The truth about breaking habits is that change is not simply about discipline, it is about rewiring neurological systems through awareness, repetition, and emotional regulation. The first 3 days are powerful because they interrupt automatic behavior patterns and force the brain to adapt. During this period, cravings, discomfort, emotional resistance, and mental frustration are normal signs of neurological adjustment. Neuroscience reveals that habits lose strength when they are no longer rewarded consistently. Each time someone resists automatic behavior and chooses a healthier action instead, the old neural pathway weakens slightly, while the new one strengthens. Over time, repeated choices reshape the brain itself. The psychology of habit change proves something important about human behavior. People are not trapped by their old patterns permanently. The brain remains adaptable throughout life. Breaking a habit in 3 days does not mean the habit disappears forever instantly, but it does mean the brain can begin changing rapidly once awareness, environment, emotion, and repetition start working together instead of against each other. If you liked this video and would like to see more like it, please give it the thumbs up, leave a comment, and click the button to subscribe.